Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to lend my voice and my support to this shipping domestic vessels legislation. And I do so on today, the 7th of June, which is being observed as World Oceans Day. Normally, World Oceans Day is on the 8th of June. The world today will celebrate today, will commemorate it today. And I start in this place, sir, because Barbados has for some time, certainly since 2018, but well before then, has for some time been giving visibility to the question of how we structure our economy, what makes up our economy and our well-being, how are we able to move from this notion or to understand ourselves not necessarily as a small island developing state, but as what we call a large ocean state. And it doesn't mean that we ignore or neglect that we are small, that we are an island, certainly that we are well in our process of developing and development. But it means that it is about what are the opportunities rather than looking at the limitations of being small, of being an open economy, of being a taker of price and international policy. Rather than looking just at those things, how do we look at the opportunity that is afforded to us by the ocean, vast as it is around us, and by the unique fact, sir, that we have a particular position in the Caribbean Sea and in the Atlantic Ocean, but also that we are the first port of call leaving the coast of Africa and heading in this direction. And really, it is that fact has been obviously part of our historical development. It is the reason that Barbados as a country, as a nation, really came to develop the way it came to develop. It is because it was determined by the colonizers that Barbados should be set up as the model colony. We want to show that all of this money that we are making the Crown spend in England is yielding something. We have been able to civilize the savages. Look how well we have done with this island, Barbados. And so the position of the country as it lies in the ocean has historically meant a lot. Where it lies, where we lie geographically has historically meant a lot. It has been the foundation of how we have developed and why and when and where. But it is now time to see this positioning as an opportunity. And so we say, look, what is it that the ocean can give us? How is it that in a conversation about sustainable industrial development, which the ministry that I have the honor to help lead is tasked with, where does the ocean sit in that conversation? How are we leveraging that opportunity? And so, sir, I consider that this bill is about order and opportunity. It is about order and opportunity. And I want us to understand that the first is a necessary precursor to the second. Sometimes I'm not sure that we understand that. We consider that we can thrive in the midst of chaos. Some will thrive in the midst of chaos. Survival of the fittest, Lord of the Rings, and all the other stories that we know about. Lord of the Flies, sorry, not the Rings. The Rings is another story. Lord of the Flies and all of these scenarios in which it's about survival of the fittest. But what happens when chaos takes over? The people who are less willing to elbow each other out of the way, to hit one another with a stick in order to get through, those people are the ones who stand not to gain from the opportunity. And so I consider that, as in many other areas in which this government, having come to service since 2018, as in most other areas, we realize that we need to bring some order to some sectors in order to create and foster opportunity for everyone. And so I think that the bill, it is so tremendously thorough and really covers everything that one could think might be relevant to creating an industry from our oceans and from the shipping sector and from everything else that this legislation covers. But it does seek to create order. It seeks to create order with respect to how these small vessels are operated. It seeks to create order, sir, with respect to things like the abandonment of vessels and derelict vessels. And perhaps this is one of the areas that stood out for me, because it seems to me that there are so many sectors across the country where the question of how we treat assets and how we make sure that what we generate is well discarded. That might seem like a simple thing, but it is something that plagues us in so many ways. I know that the Honourable Minister responsible for the environment will probably talk at length about this matter. The fact that we have challenges with drainage and with flooding is in many ways linked to how we dispose of what we consume collectively as a people. The state has a responsibility in that. People have a responsibility in that. And I think that this question of how we bring about good order as a platform for creating opportunity is one, sir, that we will return to over and over again, sector by sector, conversation by conversation, bill by bill, legislation by legislation, because that has to be the structure, that has to be the framework, order and opportunity. And so the legislation covers many things, and I will not even attempt to speak to even the majority of them. But I want to speak to the ones that show me that the minister and team have clearly thought through what is necessary to bring good order so that all can have opportunity in this space. And so yes, it does speak to the issue of abandonment of vessels, and we have this issue with derelict vessels. We have an issue with derelict homes. We have issues with poorly discarded materials. And all of these stand to disrupt the way that we manage our natural environment and the extent to which those natural resources can serve us well. If we contaminate the water table, the very water that we have to consume, by poorly discarding or poorly getting rid of the items that we consume, we are only hurting ourselves. And so there needs to be order in order for there to be opportunity. Sir, just before this government came to service in 2018, we sat down and did quite a bit of work on what would we want, based on consultations with the people of Barbados, what is necessary for us to bring about a green, sustainable, green and blue, sustainable industrial transition. That is what the Ministry of Industry is concerned with and is rolling out. And on page 55 of that 2018 manifesto of the Barbados Labour Party, one of the things that we considered was necessary was training in maritime and seafaring skills and other related skills to be able to build out an industry around the ocean? What are the different industries and areas of work and opportunities that can exist as a result of that? And so this legislation, I do not want us to overlook the part of the legislation that speaks quite squarely to exactly that ambition of making sure that we have the necessary training and the training structure to be able to make room for all of these areas of work from which Barbadians stand to benefit. And so, sir, I think that sometimes we expect things to happen in a certain way and look a certain way and take place in a certain place. And there are those of us that might not expect that the training in maritime and seafaring skills and all of the commitment to foster that training and that preparation for young people in Barbados, one might not expect it in legislation like this. And yet, here it is. And so that Part 6 of the legislation speaks very thoroughly to the issue of training, certification, licensing, and registration. It talks about the issuance of Barbados Small Vessel Learner's Permit. It talks about certificates of competency. The different areas like boat masters, boat technicians, boat manufacturers, approved marine surveyors. Sir, this is industry. It goes on to look at public educational or training institutions, private marine training schools, institutions, and instructors. Sir, this is the Maritime and Seafaring Academy that is spoken to in the 2018 manifesto. It may not sit in the place that we may have expected it. And it may not be structured in the way that we expect it, but this legislation clearly provides the framework for all of these certifications to be accredited, to be acknowledged, so that people know if I go and I learn how to do a particular thing, it is made visible, it is recognized, it is validated, it means something. I can take it somewhere and work. I can build a business from it. I can build out an industry from it. I can employ my neighbor in it. I can employ my friends in it. Sir, this is the sustainable industrial transition that we have been waiting for. And I have to congratulate the team that worked on this for being able to make such a significant contribution to growth and industry in the country in a sector that people might not really expect you to be able to do it in. But sir, I want to acknowledge that this is a promise made and a promise kept. Because not everything will be a brand new school on a hill. Not everything will be the build out of an institution. Some things create the enabling environment for people to feel and know that their contribution means that they'll be able to participate in the economic growth of this country. Sir, the legislation also speaks to a small vessel industry support fund. So this is not just about creating the order. This is not just about making it so that operators of jet skis and other small vessels and pleasure craft and so on do the right thing, which we want them to do. But it's also making sure that we support their industry and their effort so that in cases where people need support to be able to build out business, grow business around the sector or the area of work that they have chosen, that this legislation creates a small vessel industry support fund to help them do that. I've seen cases, sir, where there are operators of some of these small vessels who have not sought and gotten the relevant insurance, or who, having done their best to get what they felt was the right insurance, then have an episode or an issue, some sea swells or some storm surge or something that they didn't expect. Turns out that the insurance they thought they had does not apply in this case, and then their asset has no value. And so I look forward to seeing how the Small Vessel Industry Support Fund is able to provide some security and some opportunity for those in the sector who want to grow their business and who want to continue to invest in their assets. Sir, the legislation speaks as well to a small vessel and water sports community investment scheme. One of the things that we know about Barbados is that there are communities where seafaring and coastal activities form the nucleus of how people live. Whether it is fisheries, whether it is the people who operate jet skis and other kinds of vessels. And this small vessel and water sports community investment scheme and making way for it is a way for communities to come together. When this government launched the trust loan program, that was very much what was contemplated. That clusters of people, friends, neighbors in communities would be able to come together, pool their resources, attract other resources, allow Barbadians to invest in something that would bring a return, so that in so doing, we can also grow community resilience. And this legislation, sir, allows for that. Sir, the green and blue industrial transition that is intended, that is underway for Barbados, is not just a notion. It is not fanciful. It is something that we contemplate in the draft Sustainable Industrial Development Policy, wherein we put in one place, once and for all, the vision and the intent for a new industry, a new industrial pathway for Barbados. Why is that necessary? Sir, because the old ways of doing industry, let me put it in such a basic way, the old manufacturing model, the old way of growing commodities, having bulk commodities and shipping them away for people to then add value and make the real money. That model, which is a part of our history, which part of our history meant that Barbadians were completely disenfranchised from their own productive efforts and capacity, we know that that model does not create well-being. It does not create wealth. It only creates exploitation. We've lived that for centuries, sir. What we now have an opportunity to do is to apply innovation and technology to a new industrial transformation. In fact, sir, it is not something that we are choosing to do. It is the way the world has gone. No longer are we looking to export a bulk commodity and say, here is our cotton, here is our sugar. Have it and create value from it on the backs of our labor. We're done with that model, sir. And so the new green industrial transition means that we have to look at what we have. We have to look at how we build out marine protected areas, so that while we are investing in fisheries, applying technology and digital transformation to the fisheries sector, applying new technology to how vessels are able to move, how vessels are able to themselves integrate new technology, While we do that, we also have to make sure that we're protecting those spaces, because if we don't, it's only so long we will have anything to fish. It's only so long that we will have a coastal area that people want to come and enjoy. And so the management of marine protected areas must be a part of that. The extent to which we are able to invest in the size of the fleet and the nature of the fleet that is engaged in fisheries. The extent to which we are able to bring in marine product processing facilities and operations. Sir, you will have seen the Food Science Center, where BIDC, the Ministry of Industry, has built out a space that allows people to increase their production, to come to scale to suit exports, but not only that, to be able to source inputs that are procured in a central way by BIDC, by Export Barbados, to be able to source those inputs so that it is economical, there are cost savings for them, for these producers, in sourcing those inputs. They're able to enjoy and take advantage of some of the best technology in taking whatever, creating, whether it is pepper sauce or whether it is pharmaceuticals and botanicals, being able to have a space where they can start where they are, but where we can help them reach scale. We do that too for marine product processing facilities. So not just items that come from the land, but people who are working on producing things from seaweed and sargassum, sea moss, and so on. And if people have not yet seen or experienced or read about what we are able to start doing at the Food Science Center, I encourage Barbadians to do that. Because here is where there is opportunity. There is literal space and a framework, a pathway to get the inputs that are needed. Because, sir, when we are looking to source materials, we're battling with everybody. Barbados, as a small island state, is battling with everybody. Barbados, as a large ocean state, is seeing it as an opportunity to be able to help people source and procure what they need in order to create and develop industry from the ocean that is all around us. But sorry, I also want to say that the Ministry of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology also considers that data is a sector, is an industry. And that the information that we get from what is happening in the ocean, from what lives in the ocean, from the ecosystems in the ocean, from who passes by us, by our shores, who comes to our shores, that information is currency, sir, is as good as money. And y'all remember for Christchurch East Central, Perk Tupman has said that because he likes to hear about money. But it is currency. That information that we get helps us understand how we might innovate here on these shores. And so being able to do the kind of ocean monitoring that we need to do, the kind of bathymetric surveying that others often have to come and do for us, that is also an industry. And we consider that being able to build skills in that, in data science related to the ocean, in data analytics, these things may sound far away. But I want the country to know through you, sir, that we are already here. We are already in the future, and time is not waiting for us. And so a lot of the work that you will see emerging from the ministry has to do not just with how we develop the blue industry, but also how we use the information that we're getting from vessels. Once we equip them with that information, how are we using that to build industry out? And to be able to create opportunities for young Barbadians and for those who might come to our shores. So, sir, order and opportunity. This piece of legislation is perhaps one of the best examples of how these things work together to take us on the road that we would want to follow towards our own development. So, sir, with those words, I want to say that I highly commend this legislation, and I'm obliged to you.